And welcome back to Coach's Corner. And to complete our segment for this week, we're talking with Coach Morrillon, who is the cross-country coach here in Artesia. And Coach Morrillon, since the last time we've talked, a lot of things have happened with your group. You went down to Carlsbad, and then you had your own meet right here.
Oh yeah, the competition was great for that 2-week time period. We went to Carlsbad, and a few of the 5A schools from Lubbock were down there, 3 of them to be exact. And then we had Odessa High, Odessa Permian up in Carlsbad. And of course Clovis, which is number 3 in 5A for the boys side of things, and Hobbs, they're number 3 on the girls side of things as far as rankings go. So competition was stout definitely that week. And then we had our invitational as well, and we finished runner-up at both meets. And then we just came off a bye week this past weekend where we ended up doing a lot of intensive training. So our kids are a little weak right now. They're a little tired, but that's part of the business.
There you go. Well, let's go back to the Carlsbad meet. You say that you were runner-up in that meet. Was that in both boys and girls division, or one or the other?
Actually, both boys, the JVA and the JV boys and the boys varsity, and then our girls were 7th out of 14 teams that competed. And then our JVA girls team was 7th as well, so it's kind of interesting how. And actually, at our meet too, our boys were runner-up. Both boys, JV and varsity, and our girls were 3rd place, respectively, both of them as well, the JV and the varsity.
Well, I know those Texas schools, they get a head start in everything.
Yes, sir.
I know when our volleyball teams play them, or basketball teams, they've usually played twice as many games, or they've been to twice as many meets. Was that the case this year with those Texas teams?
No, not at all. If anything, they're going to be ahead of us by maybe a week as far as the amount of meets they have under their belt. The thing about them is they do end up running there because they got district, regionals, and
right.
They run an extra meet in there at the end of the season where we have our district meet and you qualify for state, where they got to go to regionals and then they go to district, regionals, and then state. So basically it's still pretty much the same thing. If anything, they just have one more meet under us, but that's okay. I mean, it's not that much of an advantage.
Well, who wound up winning those particular meets?
Clovis was first on the boys' side, and on the girls' side, I believe it was Permian that won on the girls' side. Permian has a really good team. It was Permian at Carlsbad.
And then how about our own?
And then our invitational, Hobbs, they got a very strong girls varsity group. Of course, they're like us. They got a few seniors. All his girls are seniors on that team, so good experience there. And then on the boys, Hobbs varsity ran well too. And it was a good meet for us because it was the last chance. I told all our seniors that for our invitational, we're going to let them have one run together before we start placing kids. Our top 7 from here on out are the ones that will be running varsity the rest of the way. And, that's just part of the business. You have to run your best 7. And so what that's created is great competition amongst the team because I officially, after that meet, I've had 9 guys rotate into my top 5 at one time or another this year.
So how many can you officially enter into a meet and call them your varsity?
My top 7 are varsity.
7.
Top 7 are varsity.
Now, do you have to designate those kids, or can it be how they finish?
No, you turn them in. You run your top 7 that you think are your top 7.
I see.
In the varsity division, and then you turn these in during the week, early on in the week. Kind of like track, you send your rosters on
right.
to wherever you're going at the beginning of the week.
And then scoring is determined by how you finish.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's probably reverse order from any other sport. You want to score the fewest amount of points. For everything else, you want to score all the points you can. Basically, you want to have the closest guys to first place, as many of your top 7 as close to first place as possible, and that's the objective.
But there's that kid that maybe not as talented as all the rest, but he's got a lot of heart and desire, and if he can move up from say 23rd to 19th, that can mean the difference in you winning the meet.
Coach, at the state meet, 10 seconds between a 10-second time span, you're going to have about 20 runners. You can have 20 runners fighting, and each position that you lose at the state meet during that time span is very critical, and that's what you don't want to lose. That's why, and I think we've done a good job of that over the last couple of weeks, both our boys and girls. I think some of our kids have been getting out a little too fast, and then they're paying for that during the middle part of the run, and they lose position, and they don't gain it as easy at the end of the race. And so we've been able to look at that and talk about that, and hopefully now that we're at the middle part, the critical part of the season, we can fix that, especially now that we'll be going up to Rio Rancho here in 2 weeks for, a meet that really says a lot, because 22 out of the top 30 teams in the state will be at that meet in the 4A5 division. And so it's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to it.
I know you and the kids both, huh?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Them kids, yeah, they get excited, and of course I get excited, and that's what it's all about.
Now, have you been to Rio Rancho before?
Oh, yes, sir. We go every year.
Now, what type of course do they set up?
You know, it's funny because you would think going up to Albuquerque, it's hilly, you'd think it'd be a very tough course. And that's actually, if I'm not mistaken, from the majority of my kids, that was probably their second fastest time of the season. So it's as hard as the course is, because the downhill, it has a nice downhill grade. I think it kind of compensates for as much as you're going to fight going uphill. It's a matter of I think the mentally tougher kids do well on that kind of course.
Well, you mentioned the competition too.
Oh.
You've got the good competition that just brings out the best in you, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, definitely. Right now we're seated 5th. We're ranked number 5 in 4A with the boys side, and on the girls, our girls are number 11. And so I think that presents a unique opportunity, because I think, to be honest with you, I think between 3rd place to 7th place, a fight for that 3rd place trophy this year is going to be very, very close. I think it's the people that run the smartest that first mile, and of course tolerate a little discomfort, but the ones that run the smartest that first mile are going to have the best chance at winning a top 3 medal this year at state.
Now, at your own meet, I know you can't run a meet unless you have a lot of cooperation, a lot of people that help you out. And I know you'd like to say thank you to some of those people.
Oh, I would definitely love to say thank you. You know, first and foremost, the cross-country parents I have. Mecca Mortson and Angela Bradbury that kind of lead things usually on a weekly basis, and they do a wonderful job as far as helping me. It makes it easy not having an assistant coach, having people like that, hey, when we need something done, they're go-getters. And then on top of that, the parents in cross-country, for the most part, they're whatever we need, hey, just give them a holler, and you bet, right away. And so the volunteer help that we had for our invitational was wonderful. Of course, we had Mr. David Conklin and Mr. Chavarria. Every year they've gone on and cooked for us. You know, and a lot of
those guys great?
Oh, they're not just a great asset. I even told the newspaper, they're not a great asset just to I think Artesia Sports, but to all the organizations here in Artesia, because they help out and they cook for the elementary schools. And of course, you know, they're both big into anything that deals with kids in Artesia. Right. They're both gung-ho about that. And we're very fortunate. I think that's what separates Artesia from most places, that we have people like that, and they're willing to do and cut into their time. You know, Mr. Conklin's always busy with farming, and I know Chavarria does a lot of volunteer work, and yet they still cut into their time, their busy schedules, to do what they do for us. So you bet I'd like to thank them. And of course the city of Artesia for doing everything we needed for them to do to have our course ready. Now,
do you have judges, or do you run with the shoestring deal?
Well, what we have is we have an official stopwatch at the end that prints out all the places and times. You know, the numbers that are coming in, they're getting marked down at the same time. The times are going with those numbers that are coming in. So it's pretty easy to calculate, and then the computer, you punch them in the computer, and the computer results are by the end of the race.
Everybody knows. Huh?
Everybody, yeah, yes, sir. Everybody's given a copy, an official sheet of stats for the day.
I know my son-in-law used to coach cross country at Abilene Christian, and they put a deal in your ties of your shoe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's how you determined who placed when.
Oh, yeah.
And where. I know briefly we got some meets coming up.
Yes,
you go to the Institute. Is that a very big meet, or is that a small meet?
You know, actually, for you would think going to NIMI it'd be a smaller meet, but NIMI in the past they've brought in some Amarillo schools. And of course Clovis is there, which, you know, we'll be racing against Clovis again. We only run against Clovis maybe twice during the year, and that's usually one of them. And so we look forward to seeing what we're as far as how much we've improved. The last time we raced against them, we lost to them by 17 points, which is a pretty close race considering the amount of runners that ran. But you know, we want to see where we stand. You know, we lost to Hobbs this past weekend, and that's okay, because, you know, we've been training a lot, so our kids have been a little fatigued, and that's no excuse, because that's still part of the deal. You have to be able to train through that.
Sure.
You know, right now we're at our hardest part of the season as far as training goes, and so we want to be able to still be able to compete and feel fatigued. That way, at the end of the season, when we start resting, we can start hitting our peaking point and worry about running our best at the end of the season. Right now, you know, we still want to run well, but the bottom line is it's all about what we do at district and state.
Exactly. Well, Coach, we appreciate you coming by and talking to us again today, and you'll be back here in a couple of weeks, and we'll be able to talk about that Institute test, and then the Rio Rancho, and you can tell us how you did and how the kids fared, and I hope they do well, and we appreciate you coming and talking to us. Nothing but continued success throughout the year.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
And that'll just about wrap it up for today's session of Coach's Corner. I'm Jim Wilburn, and join us next week at this same time. And until then, we wish you to be a good sport.